Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well, then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon Weinstein. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. Hey, welcome back to the show. So recently, I have been helping a lot of companies with this particular topic, and it came up where I knew I had to do an episode on this because even if you're not at a point yet where you are having your employees spend your money, this is something that you're going to want to have in place and set up sooner rather than later. And it's never too early, by the way, to have policies set up on this and be able to then embed people into those policies as the need arises, as opposed to waiting until you're in the position where you need this and then you're kind of scrambling just to piece together what your policy is going to be. So what I'm talking about is really looking at your employee spending. And by that, I mean money that your employees have to spend. So you may be in a company where your employees have a budget of sorts. Maybe they have a company credit card. Maybe they have an expense reimbursement program that they participate in for travel and ancillary costs. Or maybe they simply have a department budget that they're part of and they're aware of that department budget and they know where they are in the grand scheme of things of budget to actual. So I want to talk about how no matter what size you're at, even if you only have one employee, even if you're your only employee, it's never too soon to at least jot down some bullets on how you want to approach this because I've seen it happen with companies that get to a certain size and they hire on a bunch of employees. Next thing you know, they're all trying to push through expenses and there's no real barriers. There's no rules around who gets reimbursed and how much. So everybody gets reimbursed right away. And then there's really no point in the reimbursement process because everyone's just getting paid out and the cash is just going out the door with no approval process. So the first thing I'm going to say is you want to be clear about what qualifies as an expense that you would pay an employee back for. So what is one reason that an employee would use their personal credit card or personal bank account and why would they not use a company card? You also can look into this, by the way. If you have a business credit card, you should look into Amex calls it expense cards. I have a business platinum card with them, and we have this thing called expense cards where you can actually send a card to your employee that falls under this account under this bill. So when I pay off the credit card every month, my employees have their own credit cards underneath that where I can track their spending. I can even set limits on how much they can spend per month. And I can always increase that limit over time. But what I've done is I've created that for certain employees who I want to have autonomy to spend money on software or on hardware and be able to help employees get everything they need from a setup perspective in their home office. So because of that, I wanted to reduce the barriers here and not have to buy it all myself or go online and check out myself or give my credit card to other people. So I enabled this, and this has been a great policy so far. But the other thing is that you can also have employees pay with their own cards and then you can reimburse them. That is perfectly fine as well. So if you don't have the credit card set up just yet, you can set up an easy expense reimbursement process to manage that and be able to track what you've been spending and what you've been reimbursing. So there's a couple things that I would do here if you're doing reimbursements. One is you have to define which expenses you're willing to reimburse, anything that they have to do before they spend money. So if they need to have permission to even spend the money, right? So if they go out, let's say they buy a ticket to a conference, like one of your salespeople goes out and buys a ticket to a conference, and you haven't really authorized that they go to that conference and you haven't really talked about it with them, then you have to make sure that there are clear rules in place that you may not actually reimburse that, or you'll only reimburse 50% of expenses that are not pre-cleared over a certain threshold. So you have to think about these different situations of what might pop up and then come up with some ground rules on when would you reimburse, how much would you reimburse, and, for what. So coming up with all of these different kind of parameters will help you set the tone of what you expect. It's also completely acceptable to have a budget per person per month to spend as they please on certain objectives. But you have to be really, really careful about monitoring this because it means that the person has autonomy to spend that money essentially, use it or lose it, and they could spend it on things that you wouldn't have spent it on. So what types of rules do you want to have around pre-clearing those types of expenses? On top of that, after they've already swiped the card, what protocols do you want to have in place to getting approved to get reimbursed? And what timeline can you reimburse on? Are you going to do reimbursements once a month? Are you going to require also that the employee submit an expense report within a certain number of days? I personally recommend 60 days because I think that's enough time to account for vacations and such and travel. And 30 days feels a little compressed. But if you say all expenses must be submitted within 60 days to be reimbursed, I think that's more than fair. That's actually what we did at the firms that I worked at. So that would follow suit. But you have to have this type of stuff in place because you're going to get asked about it. The first time that an employee needs to buy an extra laptop charger or they want to buy an at home curved monitor and they say, hey, would you mind reimbursing me for that? You say, yeah. You also want to be able to call on a policy to say that this is within the company policy of what you'll reimburse. Because if you don't have that policy and then somebody asks for a new monitor, well, then someone else can say, hey, I don't know. They want something for they want like a new ring light and a new this or new that. And it's like not essential for the job. It's like they're not making content. They don't need to be well lit, right? So these little things that you've decided, okay, that's not really acceptable or not really reasonable. You have to set those rules, right? So somebody might be saying, hey, so and so got a new monitor. I want a new monitor. And you got to really kind of rein that in and say, okay, it's up to X dollars a month, or it's up to a certain amount per quarter that will reimburse you for electronics or whatever. But everything's going to be really custom to your business. It has to be custom because only you know what your business can tolerate in terms of the cash flow, but also only you know what is actually essential to be spent. You really have to be mindful of where this money's going. As I put it, sometimes you want to give employees a little bit more autonomy and you want to just say, hey guys, just color in the lines, but I don't care with what crayon. So if you give them some boundaries to work in, it doesn't matter what they do in those boundaries, but they're not going to go outside those boundaries. So if you want to set that up as a limit, that is definitely available to you, but you have to be really careful about setting the tone and making sure there's a ton of trust there. Because if there isn't a ton of trust, it's going to be really challenging for you to rein in the type of spending that's going on and making sure that they're getting an ROI on that. So I think that the more data that you have in your business, the easier this process will be because you'll be able to distinguish which, types of expenses actually generate ROI and where there might be like spending leaks. So as you start thinking about spending money through your employees and managing employee spending, I want you to keep all of this in mind as options. And I would challenge you that even if you feel like you're not ready for this yet, to go out and actually just lay the groundwork of setting up these in your handbook or in your policies, just so that you have an idea of thinking clearly, what would you want to do and how would you want to handle this process going forward? Hey, small business owners, are you tired of juggling payroll, benefits, and HR tasks? If so, I want to introduce you to our payroll provider of choice, Gusto, the #1 rated HR and payroll platform trusted by thousands of businesses just like yours. With Gusto, you can streamline payroll, manage benefits, and more, all in one easy-to-use platform. But here's the kicker. When you sign up and run your first payroll through our special link below in the show notes, you'll score a sweet deal, a $100 Visa gift card. That's right. Just $100 for clicking the link below and get started to claim your reward. Don't let payroll headaches hold you back from building your team and growing your business. Join the Gusto family today and take the first step towards simplifying your HR processes while snagging a bonus along the way. Click the link in the show notes now to learn more and set up your payroll.